Last question on Purdy. I mean, it is interesting. I mean, where are you? You kind of already kind of gave it away there where you're at with Brock, but it's kind of he's an NFL quarterback. So when they win, it's like this guy's the best. When they lose, it's like get him out of there, and
Yeah.
nobody sees anything else. And it's like they lost because of his fourth quarter turnovers. And it's like, okay, I mean it's fair because some of those turnovers really were costly. But yeah, I think you could make an argument in this Bengals game that man they were only in this game in the first three quarters because Brock Purdy, 6 days after a concussion, was running all over the field and making plays and buying extra time and keeping up with, as you said, the second best quarterback in the game right now in Joe Burrow. So I kind of like what I've seen from Brock, even though I guess this is where I'm at. When they were beating Dallas, and I think the intellectual fan was saying, "Hey, you know what? This is great. They're undefeated." But come on, guys. Brock's going to throw picks. Come on, guys. The 49ers are not going to go undefeated. They're going to lose games. There's very few undefeated teams in the history of the NFL. There's very few one-loss teams in the history of the NFL. They're going to lose 2-3 games, maybe 4, maybe more. And at the time, it was like, what? They're not going to lose that many games. And Brock, he's not going to throw all these picks. And yet it sounded very logical to say, he's going to throw picks. They're going to lose games. It's amazing how that was like, pump the brakes, everybody. This is going to happen. And then when it does happen, it's like the sky's falling. He's throwing picks. He's not the guy. He's not him, blah, blah, blah. The Niners are not going to make the playoffs, the free fall. It's amazing how we can't have any perspective over the course of a season. I fall into it. Probably you may as well. But through it all, how would you say that Brock is progressing the way you thought he would progress, let's say in training camp, factoring in, the hope for good health? He's been healthy. He's played. Is he playing about the way you thought he would play? Did you think he'd play better? Did you think he would play worse? Give me your quick thought on Brock before we end.
I actually think he's played better than I thought he was going to play. And I think that Kyle Shanahan has put more trust in him as a passer than I thought he was going to. I also think during this 3-game skid, context is really important. The only game where he was like bad for a majority of the game this year was against Cleveland. But look, against that defense that we're so complimentary of, what did Brock Purdy do at the end of the game? He drove the Niners right down the field, and I thought that Kyle Shanahan, who I don't like his game management, I don't like how conservative he gets, he should have run another play or two to make that field goal a little bit easier. But what did Brock do? Drove the Niners right down the field in crunch time when he was in the pressure cooker, making some high-level throws to set up a field goal that Jake Moody should have made. And if Jake Moody makes that kick, we're talking about Brock Purdy's game-winning drive against that defense where he overcame adversity and maintained that mental fortitude that had to require stones. So context is important there. Against Minnesota, really good first 3 quarters, and to rebound off that Browns game, that was important. I will say those 2 picks that he threw in the fourth quarter, awful throws. He threw it too far inside on that ball to Jennings, and then that drive at the end of the game when they're down by 5, he's throwing across his body, and it's just a bad throw. Those are on Brock Purdy. But did those 2 picks come after he suffered a concussion on that quarterback sneak? Potentially. Was he a little bit rattled? May have been, as far as his brain goes. And then against Cincinnati, really good first 3 quarters. The opportunity that he had to really prove himself against a good defense. Everybody loves their defensive coordinator, Lou Amarillo or whatever. He's looked at as one of the best defensive minds in football. He's making improvisational plays. He's running for his life out there. He's extending plays with his legs in the pocket, but picking up first downs with his legs, coming off a concussion from 6 days ago. He's layering footballs in there to all 3 windows. A couple of the seam balls and the throws down the numbers to Kittle, to Ayuk. Those are high-level quarterbacking throws. Again, when you're inside the 10, off that broken play that should have been a shovel, you can't throw that football. Those were the picks that Brock Purdy was throwing at Iowa State. Can't happen at the NFL level. And then the very next throw, linebacker read his eyes. He threw it right to him. Those picks are on Brock. But context is important because in 6 of the last 8 quarters, as I said, I think that he's played really good football. Things were too easy for him to start his career. 10-0 in the regular season as a starter to begin his career. Every quarterback has gone through a rough patch. Look at how Troy Aikman started his career. Look at how Peyton Manning started his career. Tom Brady has dealt with struggles. Patrick Mahomes has as well. This guy was falling for Mahomes at the start of the season a couple of years ago. The NFL is hard. There are great defensive minds. There are great players. There are great schemes. It is best, I believe, to bulletproof Brock Purdy's mind now and for him to deal with these struggles now than later in the season. And I do believe that San Francisco can turn this around. And I think it's good that Purdy has hit adversity because at some point you're going to hit it. And he's hitting it right now. And I have belief that he's going to be able to respond to it just because of the way that he carries himself. And again, what I've seen, large body of work is what you have to focus in on here. You know, I could do 10 straight shows that are awesome. If I have one bad one, doesn't mean I'm a shitty host. Just mean I had an off day.
You know, and if I said to you quarterback stat, what's the stat that you look at? Is it yards per attempt? Is it quarterback rating? Is it completion percentage? Because I'm looking at his numbers. You know, he's the highest passer rating in the NFL on throws 25 plus yards down the field at 142.2. Cousins is second, Stroud's third. He's second in passer rating overall. And he's 10th in completion percentage. He's first in yards per attempt. I mean, that's pretty good for a second-year quarterback. I would say that's and for a guy who a lot of people thought, hey, man, he's not even going to play the first 6 weeks of the year, coming off the elbow. Other people projecting sophomore slump. People projecting he couldn't get any better. To be first in yards per attempt, second in passer rating, first in quarterback in passer rating on yards on passes 25 yards down the field, 10th in completion percentage. I'm pretty satisfied with those numbers, to be completely honest.
Pretty damn good. And you look at how he's playing as compared to how Jimmy Garoppolo is playing with the Las Vegas Raiders. He's benched going into November. And Purdy statistically has been one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. So this Jacksonville game is huge.
Yeah.
If he struggles again, they're not going to bench him, right? Like you have to be able to give him a leash so that he can battle through some of these things. But if you lose that Jacksonville game, I think a team as a whole from a macro standpoint, things start to get a little bit tight at 5-4. I think Seattle's a really good team. You play them 2 times in 3 weeks with the Eagles game sandwiched in there. You got to beat Jacksonville. And if they're able to do that, I think we're going to forget about a lot of these struggles over the last 3 games.